Welcome to another broadcast of the Lorain County Commissioners' General Meeting. Unless otherwise announced, meetings are held Thursday mornings at 9:30 at the Lorain County Administration Building, 226 Middle Avenue, 4th floor, downtown Elyria. These are public meetings, and as always, you are invited to attend.
Would you stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning and welcome to the December 18th meeting of the Lorain County Board of Commissioners. Commissioner Kokoski has the dog for today.
Got a little cute little male, oh, this is loud, miniature pinscher today. How old is he now? About a year old. He's very well behaved, I know, because he came up in the elevator with me this morning. He's really cute. So don't forget, Christmas is about a week away. Very inexpensive gift to give to your family, about $29 out the door. We also give you a $50 gift certificate to take to any vet so you can get your pet spayed or neutered.
Thank you, Commissioner. A thought for today. Life may not be the party we hoped for, but while we are here, we might as well dance. Madam Clerk.
Under Resolutions Number 1, Job and Family Services Bills.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Investments.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Appropriations.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Transfers.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Yeah, I have just one question. We transferred another $50,000 for Clemens and Nelson for this year, which is going to take us up to about $200,000. And I know we did have about 4 HR people at one time. Would it be cost effective to maybe hire 1 or 2 people instead of paying this money out?
Well, I'll tell you, Commissioner, you're accurate. We did have about 4 people at one time. We have no people
Right.
presently. Even when we had those folks, all the other elected officials used Clemens Nelson. They did not want a centralized office. It saved us some resources because we had our in-house people, but it wasn't cost effective enough because the rest of the county refused to use a centralized resource that belonged to another appointing official. So we have found it to cost us less than half of what it would be to provide staffing to those people within their departments to do that work by using outside consultants.
Okay, thanks for clarifying.
I wish,
that.
in fact, I wish it had been successful because back in those days, I was one of the people that came into the county through the Blue Ribbon Committee in the early 90s that indicated we should try to centralize those functions a bit. And we had a modicum of success, but it just wasn't accepted across all the lines of authority.
Thank you.
Anything further? Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Advances, repayments.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Requisitions.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Travel expenses.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Bills.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Under the Commissioners, authorize various personnel actions as indicated in the summary sheet for employees within jurisdiction of Lorain County Commissioners.
Mr. Cortez.
Thank you, Madam President. I do have a couple of hires I'd like to discuss with you at Golden Acres, and also ongoing matters of negotiations with some of our bargaining units, and I do have a labor contract that I want to discuss also. And I think I may have a legal matter, but I'm not sure. I want to talk with counsel a little bit before the end of the meeting. But those other issues are allowable under the Sunshine Law, so I would request an executive session at the conclusion of our regular board business today to do so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 10, approve and enter an MOU with Greater Cleveland Regional Transit Authority to provide transportation services to Lorain County residents beginning November 9, 2008 through November 8, 2009, at a cost of $62,000 annually. Governor Strickland has committed to provide funds to transit systems to lessen the impact of increasing fuel costs and support continuing public transportation service in the state of Ohio, and Lorain County will be the subrecipient of federal funds to provide such services. Authorized County Administrator to execute on behalf of the Board of Prosecutors. Approve as to form.
Mr. Cortez, you were going to give us additional information on this?
I did. And Commissioner Blair, did you get the numbers yesterday? We were going through the file looking for some numbers you asked for. I'm not sure if Sandy got them down to you yesterday or not.
No.
I didn't get any numbers.
Okay. And then I had Ron working on this with Rich. And Ron, you had a bit of information on this also?
Good morning, Commissioners. What happened at the time the governor came up with I think it was $643,000 or $641,000, our amount was going to be considerably less than that. And when we met with everybody, all the transit directors at NOACA, GCRTA, Joe Calabrese, increased Lorain County, and I think the amount is $60,200, and Medina County got $62,000, so we'll check that number. But they increased, taking away from Mr. Calabrese's fuel usage from the governor, they decreased his by about $120,000, $122,000. And split that out to the two, since it was a new charge to the two counties. And so the governor's money from NOACA, and now it's CMAG form at ODOT, was to be used, and frankly, I forgot that. We've already been in contact with ODOT, NOACA, and Joe Calabrese, and we can make a simple adjustment to the grant request of the CMAG funds. So unless the board wants to pass a resolution, there will be no need for an MOU. There's no local general fund dollars being spent for that. We agreed to do this at the time, and that's the part that I forgot. We agreed to do it at the time because it was a new charge to these two counties from GCRTA, and they wanted to provide us, a year to decide how we were going to deal with that. By July, we will let you people know, and Cleveland, Avon Lake, know what our recommendations are. We're pretty close to knowing right now, but we want to check out a couple of things. So this will be paid by the state through us transferring directly to Cleveland. So in my opinion, I don't think, other than letting you and the public know, we'd have to have, you can table this or just remove it from the agenda. We don't need action.
Well, I believe those are the final discussions we had when we were at the University of Akron in Brunswick, when we were settling this, that's where it was going to. So that's why I didn't understand all the discussion.
And if I had remembered last week, it could have simplified things, but I didn't.
Okay.
So I guess, summing that all up, there's no additional general fund money that's
Right.
going to be used to fund this service at this time. We still have to go back, take a look at this issue, and find some solutions, because we don't have the long-term funding.
Right.
We only have the intermediary funding that has been provided from the state.
Right. And through the talks with Great Cleveland RTA, they said they would take it quarterly if we worked out a better way of using the money instead of expending with them to continue the service at
That-
Lorain County and into greater Cuyahoga County.
That's correct, and the MOU, as I understood it, was for a 12-month period, but based on quarterly charges, and so we'll take care of that. Okay.
Thanks, Ron.
Thank you.
How generous of them.
It's better than it coming out of our pocket.
So we just will do anything
Table
with
it.
that?
Nothing?
Nothing with it?
No, not
Okay.
necessary, we were told.
Okay.
Okay. Number 11, approve and waive the reading of the same for Lorain County Board of Commissioners meetings for November 20th, December 4th, and 11th.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair? Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
For the MOU and authorize amendment number 1 and 2 of the standard independent contract agreement with Greyhound Lines, Inc., Dallas, Texas. Amendment 1 is an increase of 5%, Amendment 2 is a decrease of 40%.
Do you, Mr. Twining, just want to expand upon this?
You know, number 12?
Yes.
This is just clarification and a change to some of the parameters with Greyhound. It's really a housekeeping measure with them. Karen Davis actually worked on this rather than Mr. Twining and myself. It has to do with the revenue split on internet tickets and the tickets that we sell over the counter, and that percentage seems to change with Greyhound on a regular basis, and we just have to keep track with it with updating our MOUs and contracts. So the service is working pretty good over there. I see a lot more ridership than I had thought. There's always people standing outside there. So I think that we should continue with Greyhound unless something better comes along. And I think we got some of the complaints under control over there too. I haven't heard as many as we did before, but maybe you're getting them.
I haven't seen
Thank you.
We have tried to work with the folks down there as best we can.
So moved.
any. Second.
Anything further? Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Authorize longevity pay for Thomas Borowicz at Bailiff Lorain Municipal Court at bi-weekly rate of $806.56, which represents the county's 2/5 share.
And before taking action, I'd just like to point out that this is not, thank you, discretionary on our part. We change these off and on quite frequently, and they're mandatory contributions on the part of the county. Also move.
I'll second.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Increase the sales tax and instruct the clerk to advertise notice in the Chronicle and Journal on December 29th, 2008, and January 5th, 2009. First hearing will be January 15th, and second hearing on January 22nd at 9:30.
We need to have a little discussion on this.
Yeah.
The prosecuting attorney has distributed a package to each of the commissioners, and I forgot to bring mine with me, how efficient. But he's given us several different scenarios.
No problem.
Thank you very much. Except I had mine marked. That's okay. The clerk has provided the copies to us. It says attached are several scenario resolutions with notices relating to the sales tax. There are 8 options. One is a 1/4%, one is a 1/4% general, 1/2% general, 1/4% justice, 1/2% justice, a 1/4% general and justice, a 1/2% general and justice. A combined notice for both can be advertised this way if needed for further discussion. The board will need to adopt something next Thursday, which is today, December 18th. She will advertise in both papers on December 29th and January 5th. The first hearing will be on January 15th and the second hearing on January 22nd. Resolution is to be in hands of the Tax Commission on January 26th in order to comply with the 65 days of the effective date of April 1st, 2009. And Jerry, did you want to comment since you were the preparer of all these wonderful documents?
Okay, actually, I think there are, what's happening is we will have to have these hearings if you wish to enact this as an emergency to have the tax go into effect April 1st. We have to do the hearings and have that completed and down to the tax commissioner by January 26th. What I prepared for you are several different options, and we would have to pass a resolution indicating that we are going to consider one or several of these options. And then when you come back at the hearings, you can select which ones you want to do. And as was already indicated, the proposals I have for you are a 1/4%, which would just go to the general fund, a 1/2% that would go to the general fund, a 1/4% that would go to justice administration, a 1/2% that would go to justice administration, a 1/4% that would go to both general and justice, and a 1/2% that would go to both general and justice. If we do that, you have to make a determination how that would be split between those two. So we have to have some thought on that. I also included, and that's all under one type of sales tax, in which you have a 0.5% available. There's a second sales tax, which is the one that's currently being used for the jail. There's a 0.25% left over there. And so I have a 7th resolution that would allow you to enact a 0.25% for the general fund under that provision, should you decide to go there.
Well, that 0.25% for the jail, could that go for operations, or does it
No,
have to be
I
brick and
have
mortar?
that I just have, you have one under that section that is dedicated to the jail. The resolution that I have for you there would be for general revenue as opposed to the jail.
But then, Jerry, can't we do a restricted just to the jail, which would be bricks and mortar and operations, though, like the current one is? Can we duplicate it, basically taking 0.25% up to a 0.5% based on a vote of the people?
You could do that. I haven't prepared that resolution.
Can we get that added also prior to this, or can we add it from
Okay.
the floor here? Or, I mean, we have the other 0.25% restricted.
Okay, if that's what you want to do.
I'd like to discuss it. That's what the
Okay.
public meetings are about. I don't want to miss any opportunity to get support to somewhere along the line.
Okay.
Is that okay with you, Sheriff and Draws?
And all of these I have drawn up as continuing levies as opposed to a number of years.
Okay.
Can we have the option of doing it like a 5-year thing also, or is that something that we can talk
You
about?
can, but then we'll have to have another whole set of resolutions, so. And so Teresa, if we wait till next week, that gives you time to get them in the paper and everything? Okay.
Well, that's why I kind of put it out just a little, gave me a couple extra days if we decide until next Tuesday.
So we don't have to decide today?
It's up to you. I mean, I've got it going on the papers on December 29th and January 5th, and that would still be in the time parameters for the first public hearing in that.
The reason why we have to get this, make a decision and get this, the public hearings and everything, so that it could be on the November ballot?
If you pass it as an emergency, then it would go on to, well, I have set that up so that you would be requesting it to go on the ballot. There are several different ways you can go. The last time you just passed it as an emergency, and then it got onto the ballot by
Referendum.
referendum. You can pass it by emergency, and the way I have these drafted is that they, by authorization of the commissioners, would go on the ballot in November. Or you can do it as a non-emergency and just put it up for the election in November. The way, the impression I've gotten from the commissioners is you wanted to enact it as an emergency and then automatically have it go onto the ballot in
That's
November.
correct.
And that's the way these are drafted.
Commissioner, going back to what you're saying, why the idea of a temporary?
Well, because hopefully within 5 years, the economy's going to turn around. I think back when you passed the last sales tax 20 years ago, it was probably an emergency at that time, and then the economy did turn around, I think, so hopefully there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Be careful, maybe the train coming at us.
From the other direction.
Well,
I'm waiting for, you
we
brought it up.
don't, need to make a decision on what type of, which tax we want to pursue. We can decide that during the public hearings.
Yeah, but he's got to advertise,
Right.
if we're talking about temporary also, that's the direction you've got to give Mr. Ennis. That's what I was asking. Stop right here, so.
What do we need to know in order to advertise, Jerry?
You need to let me know what it is you wish to consider.
Okay. So we have to...
Consider all of these options that I have set forth for you. Ted has indicated he wants to consider the 1/4 dedicated strictly to the jail,
Correct.
construction and operations. I need to know whether you want to consider these just as continuing, or if you want to consider them for a certain number of years. And then on the, if you want me to consider a combined general and justice administration, I need to know what portion you would divide to each. I mean, I don't know whether you want me to just do that as a half and half, or you want to.
These are going to be full-page ads, I'm assuming, with all the
No,
advertisements.
actually,
No, we kinda
we're
shrunk
going to, I think we can just, you know, we used, when we
Cite the
did it
codes.
last time, we had an ad that went into all the legal jargon, and after looking at it, that probably doesn't impart any information upon people, so we're going to, after reading what the law requires as far as a notice, it's going to be not much more than what I just said today, is that the commissioners would consider a 1/4% for general, a 0.5% for general, 1/4% for, you know, and so on down the line. So it's, depending on how many you do, it's going to be lengthy, but we're not going to do the whole thing about all the legal jargon that we had in last time.
Okay, my thinking, just to comment on Commissioner Kukowski, if we go for a temporary, there won't be any bricks and mortars expenses, nothing that would go for financing or fixing past the 3 or 5, whatever years she's supposing would go, because it wouldn't be a fixed dollar, correct? So I don't know if that would work as a restricted towards any jail funding on a temporary. Because you can't go out for bonding or financing if you don't have a guaranteed revenue stream, correct? I mean,
Right.
meeting with Moody's and Fitch's, I mean, I understand that, but just to state it. So I don't know where the temporary, where are you thinking about putting the temporary at, is my answer.
Well, I was
don't
thinking
know.
5 years, but you make a good point.
To what, though? That's what, 5 years to
A
what?
1/4 for the jail and a 1/4 for,
You can't do the jail because you can't do any bricks and mortar. That's what I'm, if you can help me clarify, that's all I'm asking. I
why
don't
can't you do
mind
bricks
asking.
and mortar?
Because you can't finance unless it's under 5 years if you do a temporary.
Oh.
Because you can't go out to market because you don't have the money to pay the 20-year notes.
Well, I guess the temporary is not going to work then, is it?
No, well, I mean, I can, I mean, it's just a matter of where you want to take it to. If you want to do a 1/4% general temporary, as one of the discussions, we could do that. Would you like to add a 1/4% general temporary for discussion points with the advertising? You're the president, I'm just trying to make some dialogue here, so I understand where your thinking was, Commissioner, I'm sorry.
You're just talking, you're allowed to
Okay.
talk.
You're
I'm
letting
not
me this morning?
objecting. Yeah,
Okay.
first time. I'm not objecting.
I guess,
Go ahead.
let me just say this, I guess if we do a permanent tax and things do turn around, we could always repeal it too.
I
Correct.
just don't see things turning around like you're talking
Well,
about.
I'm optimistic.
I
I
think
try to
you
be
are,
optimistic.
and I applaud you for that, but I just don't see that happening.
Not in the near scenario. I mean, the
No.
next 3 years, the state of Ohio meet with the Office of Budget Management isn't looking for any upswing whatsoever till the third quarter of 2011. That can be found on State of Ohio website. You know, they
Well-
give their prognostications, and the
Let's-
costs keep increasing with the justice system. I don't,
I don't want you to lose touch with whether the community, whether it upticks or doesn't uptick. The sales tax that's currently within Lorain County, whether if it even starts to increase, is not going to increase sufficiently enough to meet the demands of the operating budget of Lorain County. Even if it grew at a robust 5% a year, that would only mean an additional $1.25 million. We take in with all three sales tax right now, we're counting the jail one, and a 3/4%, we take in about $23 million, thereabouts. So that would be $1.15 million on 5% growth, and we haven't seen 5% growth in a decade in the sales tax. So to think that there may be a recovery in the economy that's going to increase the revenues into our coffer, while I'd like to see that, I just don't think it's going to have the overall long-term effect that we may be thinking about. So I just want to give you a few numbers to keep in mind as you discuss this. Thanks.
Okay.
Commissioner, if I might add, with the first broader unrestricted method, you can discontinue that, or you can cut it back in the future if you decide to do that. The second restricted tax, you can stop it and you can cut it back, but when you can't, you have to take it back altogether. It's kind of strange, so you have to be careful with that one, because once you're limited in your ability to cut that one back. If
Okay.
you cut that one back, you have to cut it back all the way. So you gotta be careful with that.
Right, to cut back that quarter, you'd end up cutting back the whole half, is that what you're
Right.
saying, Jerry? So it would
Right.
deplete all dollars to the
Right.
jail. Okay, I don't think
So
that's a good idea.
just so you're clear on that one,
Okay.
if you can keep all these together.
I'd like to just look forward a bit. Okay, say we pass this as an emergency, because obviously it is an emergency, because the sheriff, we don't want to see the deputies off the road. We start collecting April. Does that mean we can automatically start calling back the deputies right now, or?
No. The collections are 2 months behind, so if the tax starts in April, we won't see any monies from this tax until June.
Probably the end of June is a more likely scenario before it's all banked and accessible. Then the Budget Commission would have to reappropriate the certificate, and then we would have to reappropriate funds into the account. So it's not a long mechanism, but it'll take a couple weeks to get all of that done. Because right now, there's no certificate that would even cover that potential revenue until it's sourced.
So when would the deputies be back on the road?
We could probably push things around the appropriation process with the anticipation of cash, which mean we could lower some appropriations in other areas to raise appropriations in those particular areas with the anticipation of the funding. So you could probably get them on the road within a couple months. Once you have all the hearings and you do this and whatever's decided is decided, at that point, we know that revenue is anticipated. So we could lower the appropriation in some areas that we know we're going to have need later in the year with the anticipation of putting it back when the revenue comes in, after this whole process is all done.
And then also last week, Ted and I both agreed, I don't know if Betty didn't really mention whether she was in favor of it or not, but if our carryover was more than $8.5 million, we were going to give that to the Sheriff's Department, so we might be able to get them back on the road with that.
I know there was some discussion on that.
Right, we had some discussion, and not all of it. We still have to see what the rest of the fallout is, because we have to redo our health care fund yet, based on not having layoffs. I know the Court of Common Pleas have worked up a very good program with special accounts, right, Tim? You can tell us about that today or next week?
Yes, today.
You want to come up and do it now, if you don't mind, Commissioners? They've worked out a way with their employees in special accounts. I know the county treasurer has moved a couple bodies into special accounts. I don't know what's happened with the other departments at this point, but.
Right, because I'm a little nervous, not everybody came in and said what their plans were to,
Well, we know the
cut-
sheriff, we know the clerk of courts. I don't know if Ron made it this morning. Is he ill yet? The clerk of courts, us, common pleas. Who else? I'm trying to think who else we have out there. Oh, Judy, our
Mark
county
Stewart.
recorder. Don't know what Mark Stewart's doing yet. Mark was just in at me and get a chance to talk to him. Craig, any idea as of yet how the fallout's gonna be? Still working on it? Okay, so we still don't know our amount of healthcare costs that we cut on the global accounts based on not having any layoffs and people moving to special accounts. Correct, Jim?
Well, I would think that if they move to special accounts, those special accounts, like people that are on grant funding, would be responsible for the benefits payments. I'm assuming
Correct.
that.
That's correct.
Oh, so they come off our account anyway.
Well, I know that the courts have been working, around the clock
Right.
on these things. I have not had a chance to dialogue with Doug or with Tim with respect to the all absorption cost of what they're gonna do. But I have indicated that I've anticipated significant reductions in the need for the general fund to pay for health care, and we need to get those reductions to stay within the budget we have right now. So if they're not taking them over with their full cost, which is the benefits cost, then we still have issue.
Okay.
And to address some of those issues, as Mr. Cortez indicated, the court has been meeting on this. We literally just had a decision by the judges yesterday. We've actually not communicated that decision and its impact to the personnel. So I'm going to restrict some of my comments today to a written statement because, again, the judges were mindful and wanted their personnel to be aware of what those impact is going to be before we make it public. So I'm going to read a statement. I think I have some comments, though, that can assist you in your deliberations, Commissioner. In accordance with the recent budgetary reductions enacted by the Lorain County Commissioners, the judges of Lorain County Common Pleas Court, General Division, have taken the necessary steps to bring our budget into conformity with the Commissioner's requested 20% reduction. The General Division had anticipated a reduction in revenue during 2009, and despite anticipated cost increases, did in fact submit a budget for this period that was significantly less than the preceding year. Nevertheless, even with the cost savings that the court was successful in implementing, these savings were insufficient to meet the Commissioner's mandated 20% reduction. In resolving the budgetary shortfall, the judges' first and foremost concern was ensuring the safety and security of the citizens of Lorain County. No less important was a desire to minimize, where possible, the impact that a reduction in programs and services would cause to the community. With these factors in mind, the judges have made the difficult decision to implement a combination of personnel and hourly reductions among the various departments. Having somewhat anticipated the economic difficulties that Lorain County is facing, the court has been very conservative in its expenditures, thereby accumulating funds in some of the court's special projects accounts. Utilizing these funds, the court, on a provisional basis, will attempt to mitigate its reductions so as to minimize any decline in services to the community. The judges are mindful of difficulty in anticipating to project what the future will hold for Lorain County's economy. However, the court is hopeful that the plans that have been implemented are of a temporary nature to address a short-term problem. The judges and employees of the General Division are proud to continue to provide the same level of service to the citizens of Lorain County while assisting the Commissioners in addressing the financial difficulties of all Lorain County residents are facing. Specifically, I can't go into those personnel that are going to be laid off or those personnel that are going to be having hourly reductions. I can say that we will have some of those reductions that will return money to the Commissioners through the health care fund. In addition, in conversations with your budget director, I know she's anticipating a fairly conservative return of funds from the various departments. I am proud to say that the General Division should be returning a fairly significant sum of money, almost perhaps even $200,000 to the general fund. And so those would be additional funds that the Commissioners perhaps can utilize in their deliberations. The one area that the judges asked me to address today, if I could, is a concern with respect to the reduction of the juror bus. The judges are concerned. Obviously, there was the need for the Commissioners to make reductions in their staff, and that has impacted, obviously, your ability to provide transportation for the jurors. The jurors are bused right now from Washington Avenue because of parking problems. The judges have asked, at least as part of, and again, it's completely within the Commissioner's discretion, but in anticipation of the fact that the court will be returning a significant amount of general funds back to the Commissioners, if the Commissioners could consider reinstating the juror bus. And I think there's a number of things that go into that, everything from these are citizens of Lorain County that are volunteering their time, providing their time with very little compensation to come provide a necessary service to the community. The judges are concerned, particularly during this time period with the winter months, that a lot of our jurors are elderly, and walking from Washington Courthouse could be a severe hardship for these individuals. And obviously this is something that you could consider on an ongoing basis. As the weather improves, perhaps you give reconsideration to perhaps reducing the busing. And so as time progresses, and perhaps by the end of the day, once the judges have had the opportunity to address their personnel, I can give you more details as far as what the impact as far as dollars will be for you.
I
Thank you,
appreciate it,
Tim.
You're very
Thank you very
welcome.
much. It was nice you guys worked together. We were worried about a journal entry.
No. Thank you
very
Commissioners.
much.
Thank you.
I would like to consider that jury bus. They make sense with the elderly coming from Washington Avenue, though.
Don't have a driver anymore. I can appreciate the concerns, but like all the departments, we've taken some significant cuts. We don't have the manning right now to run the jury bus. It was costing quite a bit of money to run that bus. Even bringing somebody back that had retired to work with us intimately and on a part-time basis. So, right now there is no elasticity in our budget. I sent the letter out just yesterday, eliminating that service.
How much did it cost us all in to provide the jury service?
Oh, probably about $20-something thousand a year. Even, we have to have a CDL holder, and
Right.
and then we had them take care of the buses. And I'm being conservative because we had old buses, and they periodically would require some expensive repairs, but they weren't over-road buses because we just used them to shut around town, so we did keep the maintenance down to a slow rumble. But the buses are pretty old, and then we got the fuel, and then the cost of having a driver. The funny part is you may only need a driver for 2 hours, but you may have to have them here for 4 because you just can't keep calling them from home to come in. So once they have jurors on, we usually have somebody here for almost a full day. And sometimes, depending on the length of when they sit, we have to have them to shuttle them later in the day.
As part of the judge's dialogue, that topic did come up, and there was, and again, this is obviously something for the commissioners to consider, the possibility. Obviously, our dilemma is having jurors park at a very distant location and having to be transported to this location. Parking is always a difficult problem in Lorain County, in our city. If we could see our ways to perhaps providing some parking location closer to and again, I know it's a rock and roll question.
I got to tell you, and I appreciate what you're saying. Over the last several years, we've looked at almost every piece of available property within a responsible walking distance to the Justice Center and the admin building to be able to increase our parking. And we actually just picked up some parking over here on Broad. It's not a huge amount of parking, but it's going to alleviate, when we finally get it into full use in January, it's going to alleviate some of the burden in the immediate downtown area, but not with respect to the jurors. And the Depot Street parking is almost as far as the Washington Avenue parking, and it's very hard to police back there because it's in the alley. I would not expect any significant gains with respect to getting parking to alleviate this problem anytime in the near future.
How many jurors per day? Is there
I don't
'cause
have
I know
those
the grand
figures.
jury meets twice a week, and
Yeah, I don't have, I can provide those figures to you probably after having a conversation with our jury commissioners. And it is a difficult dilemma because it varies. I mean, literally,
Right.
you could have 30 people coming in, you could have 120 people coming in.
Yeah, they call the pettit juries, and
Yeah.
especially when they're calling for multiple courtrooms, they usually call it large blocks. So there's some days you can have the 120, 130 people show up. Mostly you're running with smaller groups because they release a lot of them, and then they vary to how many cases actually make it into the courtroom. But we've had some very, very big days where we filled up the lot down there. We've been shuttling pretty aggressively.
So yeah, from a parking standpoint, I think they would be difficult to accommodate because then you would be making available a number of spaces that you may not utilize on any kind of regular basis. So that may not be the optimum solution, but obviously it's for your consideration, and the judges would appreciate what you could do with respect to the juror bus.
we'll take a look at
Thank
it,
you, Tim.
Thank you.
Commissioners, do you want to finish our regular order of business and hear from the public and then come back to this issue about how to proceed? Would that be all right with you?
Sure.
I would suggest that.
But while we're talking about the bus issue, if they're going to be bringing back $200,000 to the general fund, are we going to penalize them? I think we should, I mean, if we're going to spend $27,000 compared to the $200 that they're giving back to us, and it is a issue of, for our citizens. So I think
Well,
it's...
what we've done with the budgets for the last several years is we baseline the budgets. So the cuts weren't contingent upon what they spent, it was contingent upon the overall budget. We returned over $600,000 to the general fund from the commissioners' departments this year through attrition and lack of filling positions. So rather, years ago, the county did take what you spent and then gave you a decrease or increase on what you spent. So being frugal and efficient with your money was not rewarded. And it tended to disincentivize people from trying to work with cost-cutting measures, so that any cuts we're taking on the full cost budget this year, rather than on that reduced budget.
Right.
Madam Clerk?
Authorize County Administrator and Assistant County Administrator to provide and execute all necessary documents effective December 4th, 2008 through December 31st, 2008 for the year-end close activity, including but not limited to transfers, advances, repayments, appropriations, requisitions, travel, bills, payroll-related transactions, and payments.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
We will get copied on whatever's authorized while we're not here?
Same as every year, Commissioner.
Okay, because we're going to have a meeting on December 23rd now, correct? So there shouldn't be too much from December 23rd to the 31st.
I would hope there's nothing.
Minimal.
So, but this is just a contingency so that in case one or more of the commissioners is unavailable through the holiday season, we can at least get the paperwork out. If something important really came up, I would probably ask if the board met to deal with it, but just in case we have an emergency.
Okay.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Adopt the 2009 annual appropriation for the other departments excluding the general fund.
Lisa? Lisa Hobart. She has the correct name today.
Good morning. Well, as Teresa already said, we already passed the general fund. This basically is passing all the other funds' budgets. For the most part, what they submitted back in May for their budget request is pretty much what we give them. There's really no cut. We did reduce the jail appropriation based on probably sales tax estimated right now being a little bit low, and as well as what is allocated to go over there for next year.
Which is to the tune of about $2 million?
Yeah, a little over $2 million. We had to reduce their appropriations for next year.
So what is the total, do you have it, for the jail?
The jail, $10,667,000. I got new glasses, can you tell? $10,667,700. And I believe their estimated expenditures for this year are going to be close to 12.4.
Not good.
Now, Lisa, who gives us those sales tax revenue estimates?
David and I pretty much put them together. We look off of, a trend and what we've been getting in over the months and everything.
So you expect a drop in next year's sales tax revenue?
Maybe a slight one with the economy the way it is. Other than that, for the most part, we really didn't have to make any reductions. I know the certificate of title fund, we'll look at that after the first of the year because there probably will be some reductions in that with them closing this office over here.
And all those funds together, do I have the correct total? $226,201,190.27. You adjust, I took that before you adjusted the jail tax.
I'm sorry, Betty, say that again.
Or did I dream this? I wrote it down on my rough draft, $226,201,190.27.
Yes, ma'am.
That's correct, thank you. I'll move for
Wait,
approval.
all the other ones, are those also sales tax generated? I know like the dog pound's not, and.
No, only the jail and the
Only the
general
jail?
fund.
Okay,
Mhm.
Okay,
okay.
I'll move for approval.
Second?
Ms. Blair?
Aye,
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
thank you, Lisa.
Under the airport, authorize county administrator to transfer real or personal property interest to Lorain County Port Authority in accordance with Ohio Revised Code 307.10 and 310.12, and authorize him to execute on behalf of whoever the prosecutors approve as to form.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
What personal property are we talking about from the airport?
From the airport, Commissioner? did
It's
you
under
say?
airport.
To the Port Authority.
Well, it shouldn't be on the airport, it should be on the Port Authority.
Oh, okay.
I see the category says airport.
Right.
It should say,
but
it should say Port
okay,
Authority.
Okay. This is the property that we bought.
Yes, ma'am.
And
I was
we're
getting a little
selling,
concerned myself, I didn't want an
hopefully.
airport.
Okay.
Especially one that doesn't have any revenue. Would you like a quick explanation for?
Sure.
The properties that we purchased at auction, in order to gain, mostly we were very desirous of that parking lot on Broad Street. In order to gain that parking lot, we had to bulk purchase several parcels of land. A few of them do not have significant value use to us, and we'd like to be able to dispose of those properties. And the Lorain County Port Authority has better ability to work with the local businesses and economic development groups to sell that type of property than the county does. And the county does have the ability to authorize the Port Authority and transfer property to the Port Authority to do that. So this will make it much easier, and then we'll retain the desired piece. And we will have gotten it at a relatively inexpensive price when all is said and done. So I know we took a little bit of heat over the purchasing that property just about a month and a half ago, but we did have a long-term plan. We just weren't able to talk about it until we would put the mechanics of that plan into place, and that fits right in with what Tim was saying about the need to continue to find parking solutions in the area.
Okay.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Aaron Community Development award contract to Burnett Septic Service, Inc., LaGrange, in the amount of $1,044 on behalf of Timothy and Angela Ladd at 13240 Indian Hollow Road, Grafton, to receive a grant for a new aeration motor, sewage disposal system, pumping, and cleaning of the biokinetic filter. 2 quotes were received, this being the most responsive, complying with specifications, which includes a 10% contingency for any unforeseen change orders to be paid from the Home Repair CDBG FY07 account.
This contract was submitted last week, and Commissioner Kokoski had some questions on it, and I've reviewed it. I don't know if you had a chance to review it, Commissioner Kayla.
Yes.
Okay, I'll move for approval.
Just to remind everybody, that, or people that weren't here before, this is a grant for, it's supposed to be for low-income people, and obviously they qualified for the income, but the house is valued at $340,000. In my opinion, I think it should go to more people that are desperate and really in need. I can't see just giving people $1,000 when their house is valued at $340,000. So that's what you want to do, just because they qualify for the income. I'm not saying these people are, but they could be drug dealers for all I know.
Rebecca?
I know they're not. I saw that they have on Social Security or something, but.
Just to let the commissioners know, Linda Blanchett has been working very diligently on this because of the concerns, and has had several conversations with the state of Ohio. And there is nothing in the state regulations that addresses the value of the house. You know, we certainly understand your concern, but the way the regulations are currently written and the way our policy manual is currently written, there is nothing that addresses that. They look totally at income affordability, and because these folks are disabled, they did in fact buy the house in 1984 for $20-some thousand, and the house
Are you
has
sure
about,
it was the house and not just the land, and then they built the house on the land?
well, the value that
Was 20
initially
that was probably just the vacant
right in
land.
1984. Well, it may have been. We have no way of telling by reviewing the auditor's website whether it was just the vacant land, but they do have 6.5 acres on there. However, even if they were making $100,000 a year in 1984, we have to look at their current income and their current situation. We can't look at the past. But certainly, if the commissioners have concerns and would like to recommend some changes to the policy manual, we certainly can look at that, making those changes and forward those onto the state for their review and approval. So if that's something that you would like to look at for future.
I would certainly like to change the policy. There should be a minimum amount of what the house should be valued at before we start giving grants to people, I think.
Well, we can certainly take a look at that and put some language together, work with CT consultants, and I know Linda has had, as I said, has had discussion with the state. Do you have anything to add, Linda? Okay, she probably has a communique from the state.
As a minimum, if you wanted to, and just to offer a suggestion, because I've given quite a bit of thinking to this since Commissioner Kokoski talked to me last week, I'm almost positive we could probably put a clawback lien on the property. If it exceeds a certain value and they qualify, we could put something into the, insist upon a lien on the properties that when the property transferred or sold, they had to reimburse those funds back into the program. This way we would meet their immediate needs, but we wouldn't be increasing the equity value of the property.
I could look
think
at that.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out how to get where you wanted to go within the regulations, and I know Linda's been working a lot on this, but I think that we just need to be a little bit of innovative in our thinking, because that'll solve situations today, and they'll provide us additional revenue back in the future to support the program.
I could support some along those lines, but not to stop you, Linda, but I mean, looking at where they're at today and their income levels today, I mean, like Rebecca said, they could have been doing very well, but now due to health issues and or job losses, their house is appreciated in 25 years.
And that is
And then
one
you're
of the
punishing
reasons.
them now
Right.
for having a downturn or aged or health-related issues,
Right,
so.
Right. We want to be careful not to discriminate against
Correct.
anyone. We do have in the county's policy and procedure manual currently for the CHIP program, the property value, the value of a property after rehabilitation. The program we're speaking about now is Community Development Block Grant. We do not do rehab in the CDBG program. But in the CHIP program, we do have wording that states must not exceed the median purchase price for Lorain County as published by HUD. So we do have that wording for CHIP. As I mentioned to Mr. Cortez in an email, we can try to amend these for any of our programs. We do have to go through the process, send it to the state, ask for approval. So there are options.
Do we need a motion to have them?
Well, there's a motion on the floor already, so we either have to second it or do away with it.
We will bring you back some options, alternatives with what you can do for plan modification once you meet with our consultants. I just want to, I understand that we need to fix the problem now and understand where you want to be later, so we'll just meet and come up with some alternatives, and then you can work on whether you want to adopt them at a later date. But I'd like to have something by the end of January. Does that sound reasonable?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
We have them, even the CHIP grant that we just applied for, we did have a meeting and we did amend things to our policy and procedure manual. So we have done this most recently. It's not a very complicated procedure.
You may also find out if other counties have these types of requirements. It might be interesting.
They, from whom I've spoken to, they do not. In the CDBG program, they do not look at the income or the property values. But I haven't spoken to every community in Ohio.
Well, I don't expect you to either. I just
I'll
thought
work
some
on that.
comparison, some comparative. Is there a second, or does the motion die
I'll
for lack of
second.
second?
I'll
Okay.
second.
Anything further? Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
No.
Thank you, ladies.
Under Job and Family, amend Resolution 08821 adopted November 20th, 2008, authorizing various personnel and Job and Families to utilize the agency's credit card for the year 2009 in the amount not to exceed $4,000, and this amendment is to reflect an addition of an employee.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Approve and enter a software maintenance agreement with Maximus Columbus for the Windows version of program expenditure tracking system in the amount of $2,150 effective January 1st, 2009 through December 31st, 2009, and authorize director to execute on behalf of the board with prosecutor's approval as to form.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Amendment Resolution 08736 adopted October 16, 2008, approving and entering into a purchase service agreement with American Red Cross for state fiscal year 2009. Said amendments to reflect the effective date from September 1st, 2008 to July 1st, 2008.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Authorize various personnel and and children's services to utilize the agency's Visa card through the year 2009, not to exceed $2,500, $5,000, $7,500, $10,000, and $20,000, and the Shell Oil Gasoline card not to exceed $200, and employees will be listed in the resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Under Clerk of Courts, authorizing Ron Nabokowski to utilize Lower Met Visa credit card for the year 2009 in the amount of $1,500 for conferences, food, lodging, transportation, telephone, gas, and oil, minor vehicle maintenance, and emergency repairs of county-owned or leased vehicles.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Approve and enter into psychiatric services agreement with Dr. Ahmed effective retroactive to December 1st, 2008 through November 30th, 2011, with a minimum of 4 hours per week at a cost of the first year of $154.50 per hour. Second year is $159.14 per hour. Third year is $163.91 per hour to be paid from the professional services account.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Approve and enter in a software license electronic medical records contract with CoreTech, Inc. in the amount of $82,160 with the first-year maintenance fee, with no first-year maintenance fee, but $6,000 per year thereafter. 3 proposals were received.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Approve and enter in a contract with New Rush Township to pay for one full deputy, 5 days per week, at 8 hours per day, and they will reimburse the sheriff for the purchase of a cruiser effective December 15, 2008 through December 14, 2012, with a 60-day cancellation
I
clause.
see Sheriff Stamati is here together with 2 of the 3 New Russia Township trustees. I think this agreement deserves some discussion. Sheriff, I invite you. I think it deserves some applause as well.
Good morning, Commissioners. Even though there hasn't been a lot of good mornings, and I understand why, and I think everybody knows I don't blame you guys for anything. I know everybody knows it's no secret the economy is terrible. I would like to address some concerns on the jail after we look at this issue here. And I want to applaud the township trustees. We've been working on this probably close to a year. Trustee John Powinski and Dick Williams and Frank Packish. Like I say, I want to commend them, and Captain Resendez also. We've had many discussions on this. They have stepped up to the plate. One thing I do want to state, though, is that this is not it's a supplement to what we were supposed to have. It's not to supplant any personnel that we have already. And obviously, this deputy will be assigned to New Russia only. They're going to pay the full salary. They're buying a brand-new cruiser with all the equipment in it. They're paying for the gas and the maintenance and everything. So technically, he's their deputy, but he's still under our realm at the sheriff's office. But I'm going to let Captain Resendez speak a little bit on this subject, since he worked a lot on this, too.
Thank you, Sheriff. Good morning, Commissioners, members of the board. With us today, as was recognized by Commissioner Blair, we have Frank Packish and John Powinski, and I invite them up to the podium to address any concerns or questions that may come up. But as the Sheriff indicated, this was not a knee-jerk reaction to any pending issues that we're facing. These were open discussions that we've had starting in the spring of this year, 2008. Just an initial conversation with the trustees led to some serious issues that we looked at, the calls for service, what we provided to New Russia Township, and again, they stepped up to the plate and said, hey, can we do this? It started off as a little snowball. Hey, as we do in Columbia, when we have a deputy out there 4 days a week for 4 hours, they said, well, can we get a deputy out here for 8 hours? And then that led into, can we get a deputy out here for 5 days a week full time? And we started looking at the numbers. And I know there's some concerns, budgetary concerns, but I just want to assure the commissioners that this contract, that if approved by the board, will not impact any general fund dollars. This is a total reimbursement. It includes not only what the deputy earns as wages and longevity and uniform allowance and PT incentive that they get contractually, but it also has the employer's share of PERS, Medicare, health insurance, everything that comes in the total package to put a deputy out on the road. And that cost at this particular time for 2009 is about $84,398. So based on that number, New Russia has agreed to reimburse us after every 2 county pay periods, which is a 28-day cycle, the amount of, and I can tell you, $6,481.60. And in addressing the cost of the cruiser, New Russia will reimburse the sheriff's office for the cost of a cruiser. We will provide to them not to exceed $36,000. At this point, we're prepared to go forward with that. We have a cruiser prepared to be presented to New Russia, fully equipped, and will be under that $36,000 amount that was quoted to them. They will reimburse fuel and maintenance. Again, nothing that comes out of the sheriff's budget. We will invoice them on a monthly basis.
Awesome.
So hopefully, again, as the sheriff indicated, we applaud New Russia Township for stepping up to the plate. If there's any questions, Mr.
John, did you
Kowinski,
want to speak, or Frank?
Mr. Packish?
Thank you, Sheriff and Captain.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioners.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
We started talking this as we were having our community policing officer program there, and saw some increases in areas and things that will probably all be affected by in this downturn of the economy. And we did have funding available to add some additional protection. We didn't want to lose any at all from what we've seen here recently, but like I said, this is nothing that was new to the in the past month or so. We worked actually probably before even in April we started this program, and the Sheriff's Department has worked really well with us to get this accomplished, and we appreciate all the support that we can get from them. And we don't want this, though, to set the stage for all the townships. You know, we do pay taxes the same as the others. There's some issues that's been out on the table, per capita payments and residents, and I don't think that's quite the way to go. But we did want to know that we don't want to make this the first place for everybody else to do, because most townships don't have funding available for these kind of services. And again, it's total reimbursement to the county, nothing taken out, and we're prepared to go forward with this. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pawinski. Questions or comments? I'll move
Awesome
for
agreement.
approval.
I'll second.
Anything further? Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Mr. Cortez, County Administrator?
I know you have some issues still to discuss, and it's going to be a long morning, so I don't have any further reports or issues, except to remind you on the executive session. Thank you.
Mr. Ennis, Assistant County Prosecutor?
Commissioners, I have one matter of pending litigation that I would like to discuss with you in executive session.
Commissioners report.
I'm not going to do a report. I just want to remind everybody that we're still collecting non-perishable items and things like that for our servicemen and women overseas, and we're collecting them in the Commissioner's office if you'd like to drop something off. It's Post 118 in Amherst. We'll be sending them out.
No report, rather get back to the discussion of sales tax.
Just an FYI, on Friday at the NOACA meeting, we approved a resolution. It was NOACA's urgent infrastructure recommendations for a national economic stimulus package, and there were several items that were incorporated from the Lorain County engineer and from our special projects manager's office to the benefit of Lorain County. Just wanted to let you know that that had been forwarded to them for inclusion and forwarding on to the nation's capital for our new president-elect. That's it.
Okay, just a reminder that we'll meet Tuesday, December 23rd at 9:30, and I also have a schedule for December 30th, but I don't think that would be necessary.
Okay, thanks, Teresa.
And then we will have our organizational meeting on Monday, January 12th at 9:30. Board correspondence?
I move the reading be waived.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Public comment?
Okay.
Sheriff, you said you had some comments you wanted to make.
Yes, Commissioner. As you know, it's a mandated duty for a sheriff to run a jail. And from what I've heard this morning, short of me locking the doors and shutting the lights off, there's no way I can cut $2 million out of my budget for the jail. Obviously, that's a concern. As you know, it's no secret, 0.25% sales tax brings in roughly probably $7.5 million. On a good year, maybe $8 million. And I know you've been supplementing that with general fund monies. But I also want to remind the commissioners several years ago, and I know Betty will remember this, that when that 0.25% tax was passed in '95 and that jail opened up in '98, there was a period of time where we did collect some monies that were building up in there. And at some point, the commissioners had the 64 corrections officers originally on general fund monies. Through decisions that were made at that point, they were decided to move them over onto the jail tax. That 0.25% jail tax was never designed to support all those people. Even though we knew that we had to have 113 corrections officers at that time, it was supposed to be above and beyond the 64 that were hired would support the 0.25% and any support staff, not the original 64. So I just wanted to be like that the sheriff is not using all the money up out there, and now I'm asking for a bunch of money in the general fund. I just want to bring that to everybody's attention, that we weren't out there spending money like drunken sailors. But it is the cost. It's $12.4 million will be this year. I know that's nobody's fault and not your fault either, not my fault. I didn't create the justice system, and I don't make all the laws that we have to enforce. But I can tell you that is a mandated duty, and I know you have to do what you have to do, and I guess I'll have to do whatever I have to do, and we'll just go from there. I'm not threatening anybody here in any ways, but there is no way I can cut that kind of figures out of the jail. Just wanted to bring it to your attention.
We understand that, Sheriff.
Thank you.
That's why this is really an emergency issue when we're talking about possibly passing a sales tax. It is an emergency, and that just goes to show you.
Thank you.
Rebecca?
Yes, I just wanted to let you know that because of some of the things that have been going on in our department and many of the things that are going on in the economy, we realize that our contractor list for the contractors that do our CDBG and CHIP work has a lot of contractors that are not in Lorain County. We really want to try to reach out to our Lorain County contractors, understanding what the economy is. Linda Blanchette is arranging to hold 2 informational meetings for our Lorain County contractors in January of 2009. The first session will be Wednesday, January 14th at 10 a.m., and there will be another one at 6:30 p.m. that evening. That will be held on the 4th floor of this building. We're still working to arrange the room, but it will be on the 4th floor of this building. And then we will hold another meeting with our contractors January 21st, again at 10 a.m. and one at 6:30 p.m. What we want to do is get information out to the contractors, let them know what the process is, get them registered so that when we're going out to bid on these projects, hopefully we're getting more than 1 or 2 contractors responding. We think this is a perfect time to do this, and hopefully we'll get a lot of our local contractors to participate.
I'd like to see this go through the community lines as well as through the growth partnership. I want to touch as many of these businesses. I'd like to get Team Lorain County involved with the investors. And I want to thank you for doing this, and Linda, your indulgence, because you know how hard I push on these issues with our local companies providing jobs to our citizens here.
I do too.
So I think that these outreach programs and these educational programs will get them more engaged. I get very distressed when a company from outside the county wants to come here and put a $4,000 roof on when we have so many roofing companies. So I appreciate the extra.
And it distresses me when I send out 10 invitations to bid and I get 2 bids back. I can't strong-arm these contractors to bid. I wish I could say this is the most wonderful program. It does have its difficulties, and there are rules and regulations I have to go by. Now with the CHIP grant that we finally secured, we did not have one for 2 years. We now have another one. This is the rehabilitation. We always have a meeting to invite new contractors within the county, any contractors. Again, we can't discriminate, but we want all contractors to come to these meetings, get the information, so they're aware of the details up front. And I do call, if someone calls me and they say, well, my neighbor is a contractor, I call that contractor and I say, hey, would you like to come on board? Let me send you this packet. Sometimes they send it and sometimes they don't. So I am aware of the situation we're in.
Thank you, ladies. Anyone else wishing to address the board? We have a large group of people here, so I'm sure you have something to say to us. And we'll be willing and happy to listen. Okay, we're back on item number 14, which is to increase the sales tax, instruct the clerk to advertise notice in the Chronicle and Journal on December 29th and January 5th. We've had discussion about what the amount of the tax should be, what the tax should be dedicated towards, the tax's duration. And I just make a comment while we're thinking about this, that probably 3 years ago now, maybe it was 4 years ago, sometimes you lose track of time, the state of Ohio under Governor Taft instituted a 1% sales tax across the board at the state level. And then maybe 2 or 3 years ago, they reduced that back to 0.5%. Before they did that, various Commissioner Kalo and I, together with various personnel from the county, went and testified to the State Senate committee that was reviewing the matter on local government funds, telling them how badly we needed our local government funds, and then suggested to them, instead of reducing that sales tax, they keep it at that 1% level and send more money back to us for us to operate with. Well, they chose to reduce it back to the 0.5%, but they also chose to reduce our local government fund distribution at the county level based on a shift of population according to the census. That money was not lost to the county, though. It went to the other 34 local political subdivisions. And I might add that John Pawinski made the comment that he wasn't exactly in favor of a proposal of the per capita from the townships to support the sheriff's office. And just a per capita to support the sheriff's office is not the whole story. The whole story was that the letter was sent out to the townships, alluded to the fact that they received additional monies that were taken from the county. And the idea was perhaps they'd like to share a little bit of that money back to the sheriff's department. And the sheriff's department does provide road patrol in the townships. You heard the sheriff say that he is mandated to provide the jail, but the sheriff is not mandated to provide road patrol. While we all like road patrol and enjoy it very much, especially I who live in a township, we have to sometimes focus on what our mandated services are. And in 1991, when there was a severe cutback in services because of a lack of money, we had a court ruling, and the court ruling said that, in fact, the sheriff was mandated to take care of the jail and the courts, and that was his mandated obligation, and road patrol was not one of those mandated services. So anyway, back to my suggestion about a tax. If we were to institute a 0.5% sales tax, that would be, this is real simplistic and probably not very popular, but in my mind, we would just be reinstituting what the state government took away, gave to us and took away about 3 years ago. So, and we are, with respect to taxing in Lorain County, nobody likes taxes, but we are probably at the low 3 or 4 county level. Lorain County is at the low end of what we charge with respect to sales tax. So those would be my comments. Nobody likes tax. It's not a popular issue, but as evidenced this morning by the comments from the sheriff and the monies, additional monies that look like they're being taken away from the jail, I would lean towards a 0.5% sales tax. If you want to dedicate it, the general fund can always appropriate to the necessary departments. I would prefer a general fund tax.
I don't really want to make a decision as to which tax we go with until after we hear comments from the public in our next couple hearings. But I do want to make a comment on what you were talking about with the sheriff's department. He is mandated to fund the jail, but he's also mandated to keep the peace. And I don't know how the sheriff's department can keep the peace without road patrol.